Hi, I'm Melissa Uchida. How are you? I wanted to talk a little bit today about yoga teachers teaching post-pandemic and what that looks like. You know, it's a whole new world, isn't it? The pandemic hit us in so many different ways. Studios closed and lots of teachers left the industry. They created new careers and went out to do other things. Some teachers went virtual right away, others waited and then went virtual. And now things are opening up. People are starting to go back into studios, and teachers are finding that they're needing to learn this skill of teaching virtually as well as going back to teaching in the studio, but we're really teaching in a different way and to different people. There's also, as that happened, and teachers, the studios were closing, many of them didn't open back up. Yoga teachers are now having to look at their business as their business. You might have gone from a W-2 to being a 1099, or to you are your own business person. So it really took it out of yoga teachers being employees to now yoga teachers being entrepreneurs, which can be a really big shift for yoga teachers. Hey, and we're also teaching from home. So those of you that are teaching from home, you also have the distractions that you might have. You have kids walking in or you have dogs barking. Our students that are practicing virtually, they're also practicing from home, and they have their own distractions that now as a teacher, we're kind of competing with. Hands-on assists used to be assumed, right? We would take a yoga class and you could assume that your teacher would probably put their hands on you and give you an assist at some point during the class. And now, because of the pandemic, that's completely changed. Who we're teaching has also changed. We're coming out of a pandemic that's divided our nation. People are grieving the loss of loved ones, their communities, their connection, their friendships, and the feeling of safety. Basic feeling of being safe is gone for many people. So that's something that we need to be aware of as yoga teachers. It has to affect how we change. It has to affect how we approach the classroom. This was also the time of the Me Too movement. And with the Me Too movement, sexual predators, it was finally like our cultural shift said, okay, sexual predators, this is not okay. We will expose, we will change this. We will stop this. We will not let this be okay. Now, sexual predators have been around. The yoga teachers were not immune to this, that there are sexual predators within the yoga community, and that's come out as well. So we have to be aware of that. It's not okay to touch someone. Everyone has the right to not be touched. And what is safe touch? We know as our role as yoga teachers is to provide safe space. That's judgment-free and safe space for our students. That is our main job. That is our role. And when we can kind of break it down into that is our role, it changes a lot of how we teach. We had men like Harvey Weinstein and Matt Lauer and Bill Cosby, and you know, the list goes on. But we have had a shift in our culture. And as a result of the shift in the Me Too movement, Yoga Alliance has also changed their policies. So Yoga Alliance, our governing board, has now said, you must ask permission before putting your hands on someone. We can't assume when a student walks into a classroom that they're okay with being touched. We always have to ask permission. And we've lost our community. Our students have lost their community. Our teachers lost their community. So as communities start to reform now, either in the real world or in the virtual world, what kind of a community is it that you want to form? What do you want it to be the basis of your community? And it's a time when we've seen our society become more polarized. Everyone, not everyone, but there's definitely a polarization on one spectrum or the other, whether that is politics or masks or even ways of living and values. Everyone is, I have to stop saying everyone, people have an opinion and believe that their opinion should be right and the other person's opinion is wrong. We need to be able to understand that that's part of the healing that will lessen as humanity heals. But right now, things are polarized. People are in trauma. And when people are in trauma, we had 2 years of being in quarantine. We have 2 years of being told to be scared of other people, to not be next to other people, of not seeing people's faces, of not having facial expressions. And I mean, I see it in my kids, just in dealing with other kids. I see it in adults in terms of dealing with other adults. It's like people don't know how to act and respond around other people in a civil way or in a kind way. Not always, but right now, people have been through a trauma and they are grieving, whether they're grieving the loss of a loved one, whether that's to death or whether it's loss of a community. There are a lot of people who have died and their loved ones couldn't be with them when they died. There is a lot of mental unrest, a lot of mental illness right now, a lot of anxiety, fear, depression. And we're grieving the life that we used to have. The life that we used to have is not ever going to come back. We won't ever go back to pre-COVID days. It's a whole new way of being. And as a yoga teacher, the whole new way of being is making sure that we teach in a way that is accessible to people. More people need yoga. The world is stressed and depressed and fearful and anxious and broken. So more people need to be practicing yoga, and more people are practicing yoga because it's virtual, because it's needed. So as we go back to teaching, what does that mean for us as yoga teachers? It means more people need yoga. They need to reduce stress and they need to regulate their nervous systems. That a teaching regulating the nervous system needs to, and in the West here, we have always taught asana. I mean, us Americans are really physically driven. I always had a really physical practice, but we really need to teach how to regulate the nervous system, how to reduce stress, how to be able to go from a state of anxiety to a state of calm in a relatively quick amount of time, and to be able to teach our students how to do that for themselves. We know that there are more people that will be practicing yoga. So we need our language to be more accessible. I'm coming from the Ashtanga tradition, and there's not a lot of cueing in the Ashtanga tradition. You could teach a whole class without any cueing at all, called a Mysore class. And the teacher walks around and puts our hands on people and helps individuals within the pose. The students were responsible for memorizing the sequence and the postures. And it really allows teachers to be able to work individually. But think of that's more of like independent study. Now we have a lot of people, and we want our language to be accessible to a lot of people. So that means use layman's terms. You don't need to use anatomical terms. Use language that everyday people are going to understand. Use inviting language. I invite you to. I offer this to you. How does this feel? Yoga is the practice, the effort that we put into quieting the busyness of our minds. So when we understand that yoga that's all yoga is. We go and take a yoga class, you're teaching a yoga class. Really, yoga is the effort that one puts in to quieting the mind, quieting the chittavrittis, really being able to settle into the present moment, the here and now. And so when we think about that, we go, oh, okay, how can I use my language to be able to do that? Now, it's really common for female teachers to talk a lot and I have a house of teenage girls, so there's a lot of drama and things can be very dramatic. That's not what we want when we're teaching a yoga class, right? We really want less talk, but in a really precise and inviting way. Know that our students at home are, if you're teaching virtually, that you're competing with barking dogs and the mailman ringing the doorbell, or someone, a handyman coming and fixing things. Students are looking at their piles of dirty laundry or the dishes or all of the things that they go, oh, I have to get this done. I tell my students, my virtual students, this is the advanced practice. This is really when, how can we have so much focus, put the blinders on so much for this hour or however long the practice is, to be able to simply tune in to what it is you want your mind to focus on without letting all of that extra distraction get in the way and start to get underneath your skin, without feeling the need to get up and go change the laundry or get up and go answer the doorbell or whatever it is. It's very different than teaching in a studio when your students put all their things into a cubby, they don't have their phones, maybe they have a water bottle, that's it. Now it's, oh no, how can I teach in a way so that my students can fully stay with me? We really want to make sure that we give our students permission to listen to themselves, and not only permission to listen to themselves, but to remind them that yoga is an internal practice. It's about going within, getting to know our highest self, connecting with source, connecting with our highest self. And then once we are able to go there, it's like the rest of the world can kind of melt away. All of the stressful things are able to melt away. How are we to do that? How do we teach that way virtually or in the classroom when people are more stressed in this post-pandemic time? Encourage your students to listen to their body. Ask them things like, does this feel good in my body? Or do I need to change something? Do I need to shift my hips? Do I need to move my feet so that I am more balanced? Give your students the time to be able to do that, and give them the verbal cue to be able to do that as well. Give them the permission to be able to do that. Offer more options and more variations. I primarily taught intermediate and advanced students. So I used to cue to the intermediate or the advanced pose, and I would offer modifications afterwards. I've now flip-flopped that to offer the modifications first. We know that might be something like an extended side angle pose, Utthita Parshvakonasana. I might say, put your elbow onto your thigh bone, reach your other arm up and overhead. Gently roll your ribs to the sky. And then I'll say, you have the option to stay right here. This could be great. You have the option to take your block, take your hand down to the floor or a block on the big toe side of your foot. Reach your arm up over your ear, spiral your ribs to the sky, and find length in your spine. Our cues need to be, and even teaching to, whether you teach to the big toe or the pinky toe side of your foot in that pose, that is also, the big toe side of the foot is going to be more accessible. The pinky toe side of the foot would be more intermediate or more challenging. So think of the classes that you're teaching now, we have to layer on, and we'll always start now with the foundation. Start with, you're adding on the layers, even if it's an intermediate class, because there are so many people doing yoga. We really want people to feel successful at what they're doing, to listen to their bodies, to quiet the minds, and to leave class feeling better than they did when they started. When cueing, we want to be as specific as possible with as few words as possible. Now, this is not new to teaching post-pandemic, right? Cueing has always been a really important part of teaching. How do you cue? But I have found that clear and effective cueing is one of the skills that takes the longest in teachers, because especially new teachers, they're a little nervous, or we're a little, of course, you know, and what do we do when we're nervous? We tend to talk more, or we tend to talk faster, or we tend to be kind of unclear, or we might even be a little vague. Vagueness does not help our students in any way. Being unclear does not help our students in any way. As yoga teachers, we are offering this amazing gift for our students to be able to tune in to their highest self, to block out or to not focus on all of the busyness, all of the right and wrong, the yes and no, the judgment, the good and bad, all of the chitta vrittis that go on up here. None of that matters when we're in our yoga practice. We're teaching them to tune in to the heart space, to tune in to our highest self and tune into the breath so that they can have some quiet, they can have some peace, and they can recharge, reset the nervous system. Because right now, most people's nervous systems are really in fight or flight. I mean, really, there's a lot of stress going on. So even experienced teachers can have vague or confusing cues. This is a really good time to look at, how am I cueing? How does it resonate with the students? Are there ways that I could shorten the cues? Are there cues that I give that are confusing or too fancy? So, because sometimes it is, we like to fancy it up, you know. How can I simplify it so that I can be of service to more people? We've always emphasized, yoga teachers, we've always emphasized listening to your own body, right? This needs to be even more emphasized right now. Listening to yourself, listening to your own body is an advanced practice in itself. Most beginners and intermediate beginners don't listen to their bodies, they're listening to you. They're trying to listen to the teacher and they want to do well. They want to keep up. They want to do exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Am I doing it right? Am I doing what she said? Am I doing what he said? Am I doing it wrong? I want to make sure that I'm getting it right. They really, really, really want to do it right. So we want to encourage even more. This is an internal practice. This is about going within, getting to look at and understand where your physical body is today and fully accepting that, not trying to force it to do something that it's not ready for. Where's your emotional body today? Where's your mental body today? And to really be able to be honest in our evaluation of that and then honoring that. Definitely advanced skills. But the more we as yoga teachers say, listen to your body. What is your body asking you to do? What does your body need for you right now? And inviting that into more and more of the practice. More accessible also means demonstrating the postures more. So I used to not even lay down a mat at all. And those of you who have been taking classes with me for a while know that the progression, the change in teaching, I lay down a mat now every single time. I started laying down a mat even before COVID, only because the floors were so dirty. And I was just tired of, if I had to demonstrate anything, being on a dirty floor, and I didn't know when the last time it was mopped was. But I do it now so that I can demonstrate a lot of the class. I might be on my mat maybe 70% of the time now, whereas I used to stand off to the side, even in the back of the room at times, because I didn't want students watching me, because I wanted them to really focus on the internal. Now we have a lot of beginners. Now we have a lot of people whose minds, even if they're not beginners, their minds are really busy. Our minds are full of angst. They're full of worry. They're full of what ifs. They're full of grief. They're full of sadness. They're full of anger. So when 80% of our information comes in through our eyes, 80% of the stimulation we take in comes in through our eyes. So it really is a valuable teaching tool. A student can still have all of that going on and be able to follow along in the class if you're doing it. Start demonstrating more if you weren't used to demonstrating. Now, I still believe with intermediate students, it's important to shut off the senses, to shut off the eyes. So for intermediate students, it kind of is up and down. You're getting up and down maybe a lot more than you ever used to before. The pandemic brought about trauma. We've been on a diet of fear and hatred for about 2 years, fear and judgment. There's trauma in this. There's trauma in going through a pandemic. There's trauma for humanity. A lot of people have lost people. A lot of people have been estranged from other people or separated from people. So there's trauma. When we teach with trauma-informed language and trauma-informed teaching, we ask for permission before giving assists. That is also something we should be doing in every class. Yoga Alliance has changed their policies on assists to ask for permission before placing your hands on someone. And that's all thanks to the Me Too movement and really understanding that everyone has a right to not be touched. Everyone has a right to safe space, and that's a fundamental right, some safe space. So it's great that now we offer that into our classrooms, because that's really what the yoga class is about, is providing the same safe space. Touch is one of my favorite parts of teaching. Hands-on assist has always been one of the things I absolutely love. There's a huge exchange in energy, and it's also a beautiful thing post-pandemic. Touch is, a lot of people haven't been touched for years. They might not have had closeness to someone. So physical touch can still be a really wonderful part of your teaching. We just want to make sure that we ask for permission, and that can be with something, either you walk up to your student and say, is it all right? Do I have permission to put my hands on you? That can be also something like no touch chips. I have these poker chips now that I carry around with my gear. And if anyone doesn't want to be touched for whatever reason, you might be in a bad mood, you might be not feeling well, you might have hurt yourself, hurt your whatever, and put a chip on the front of your mat and just make sure that you are aware as you're walking around and honoring the people who do not want to be touched. And it's really important now for our own energy too. Remember, because with touch, we are exchanging energy. So if you have been stewing about something all day, say you had a stressful, us as teachers, we have, right, all of the normal stresses that human beings have. So if we were stuck in a negative mind space before class, you have to get rid of that before teaching. So come up with a grounding ritual, whether that's 3 or 4 minutes of square breathing, whether that's listening to a guided meditation, whether that is doing a few sun salutations or taking a shower. I like to shake it off too. Sometimes I just do like the shake dance. I do a lot of brushing to get the energy off when I need it, tapping, any of that, whatever's going to clear your energy before you go in and teach, so that your students fully have you. You're not giving them any of your negative juju. Now it also goes both ways. So if we're touching people, and even when we're in a room with people, I find that post-COVID, part of this is due to my grief, and part of it is due to my own trauma during COVID and this time as well. So that I am really sensitive to other people's energy. So I wear now Metatron's Cube usually. When it was a gift to me, I wear that when I teach. I just stick it in my bra. When I get home, I shower, if I don't shower, I always wash my hands and wash my feet, and give myself a little psychic shower. So something that will get anyone else's negative juju off of you. We want to do that for the negative juju as well as for germs, right? And for diseases. So with everything that's going around, think of it as all of the invisible stuff that we don't want, that other people might be carrying around with them. We want to make sure that we are safe and protected. These are just a few of the things, the few of the changes that we experienced teaching post-COVID. I would love to hear your comments. If you have, I'm sure there are a zillions of other things that you've experienced as teachers. I would love to hear what your comments are. If you want to put them down in the chat below, that would be really great. And if you like the video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. My name is Melissa Uchida, and you can find me at melissauchida.com. And thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon. Take care, okay?